Building a $2,000 gaming PC. Hey, I'm Samaker or Just Sam, and today I'm bringing you a high-end gaming PC on a budget of around $2,000. This is actually my 100 subs special video, and I wanted to make this video sooner, but I had two other projects which I wanted to finish before doing so. If you want to check out either of those projects, the links will be waiting for you in the description after this video. If you have any questions, something confused you, or you think I missed something, do let me know, and I'll get back to you whenever I can. $2,000 is a big budget, and this definitely isn't any regular gaming PC to say the least. This is going to be a very high-end gaming PC for the gamer that wants to get the very best without going into any extremes like an SLI build. Now, even though this build is going to be optimized for gaming, I am also going to show you a few options you can choose and switch between in order to, for example, ease up the workload on editing large video file projects, rendering of various sorts and other things of that nature. So without any further ado, let's get into the PC. Starting out with the processor, we are going with a cheap $220 Intel i5 6600K for the EVGA 1151 socket. This processor has 4 cores without hyperthreading, running at a stock frequency of 3.5 GHz boosting up to 3.9. With a decent cooler, however, you can easily run this processor at around 4.2 GHz. This CPU is not an optimal choice for things other than gaming, however, such as the previously mentioned video editing, 3D modeling, or even live streaming and recording high quality gameplay footage. If you want to do some of that, you can either go for the 6700K, which is very similar to the 6600K, except that it has hyperthreading enabled. This means that it's running 8 logical cores, which it's also running at a higher frequency of 4 GHz rather than 3.5. If you're really into processor heavy stuff and still want to build a PC focused towards gaming, I would strongly recommend the 6800K. This processor is running at a slightly slower frequency than the 6600K at 3.4 GHz. But fear not, this won't have any significant impact on your gameplay with the graphics card that we'll be using. The kicker about this processor is its hyperthreading enabled 6 cores. It does however have a much higher TDP at 140 watts versus the 6600K's and 6700K's 91 watts. Do keep in mind that the 6800K uses a different socket, so you cannot use the same motherboard for the 6800K as you can use for the 6600K and the 6700K. Now that we have the big one out of the way, let's get to the more simple stuff in terms of choosing. For the graphics card, we're going to go with the obvious choice, a 1080. The Zotac GeForce 1080 Extreme Gaming at $830 to be specific. Being one of the very fastest 1080s to date, it's definitely a solid graphics card to say the least. So for our 6600K and Zotac 1080 to be sat upon, we're bringing in a slightly expensive ATX Asus C170 Deluxe at $300. This stylish motherboard will not only match our build quite well aesthetically with its neutral black and white finish, but it will also provide us with all the extra components and expansion possibilities you could ask for. As for the RAM, we are going for a solid 16 GB. For a build as high-end as this, I would definitely not recommend any less, as there are several games that are starting to utilize more than 8 GB. The specific RAM we're going for in this build is the Kingston HyperX Impact 16 GB, which at 2400 MHz for $80 will serve us well in terms of gaming. Some things such as 3D modeling can at times need more than 16 GB. So if you're into that and know that the software you use recommends more than 16 GB, I would of course recommend going for the 32 GB kit of the same 2DIMM type kit for an additional $75. You could also choose to buy 2 sets of the 2DIMM 16 GB sets, giving you 4 8 GB DIMMs rather than 2 16 GB ones. If you feel like not even 32 GB is enough for you, the motherboard I've suggested supports up to 64 GB of RAM. So if you really want to, you could get yourself 4 16 GB DIMMs for a total of 64 GB of RAM. Stepping away from the circuits, we're going for a Corsair Hydro Series H110i Extreme to keep our processor cool, even with a solid overclock. At $110, this cooler will allow for some serious overclocking. If however you are not looking to overclock your processor at all, you will get by using just a Hybrid 212 Evo air cooler for your CPU. You can get your hands on one of these for only $30, so this will save you about $80 on your build compared to using the H110i water cooler. In terms of air coolers at this price range and even a far step above, this is one of the very best, and I strongly recommend it if you are going to air cool your CPU. For the storage, we are getting 3 drives, the first of which being a M.2 Samsung SM951 128GB drive. It isn't pretty, but at $95 this ridiculously fast little drive will allow you to boot up your PC lightning fast, as well as 1 or 2 of your favorite games. For our second drive, we are getting a $150 Samsung 850 EVO 500GB version SSD. On this drive, you will store all the games you play and more, dramatically shortening all those long and annoying loading screens. For our third and final drive, we're getting a good old hard disk drive. For this, we're going for the Western Digital 1TB Blue. This is a great, reliable all-around drive. Whilst very slow compared to any SSD, it is a great choice for large amounts of storage. On this drive, you can keep all your movies, old games and things that are just taking up a lot of space. And for $45, there isn't much to argue about here, as long as you're happy with 1TB. If however you feel like 1TB of HDD storage isn't enough for you, you can switch that up to a 2, 3 or 4TB version of the same drive for an additional $20, $40 or $60 respectively. Or if you're a big time hoarder, you could go for the 6TB version at $140. Now we're going to need something to power this beast. For the power supply, we're going for the platinum rated EVGA SuperNOVA at 850 watts. With an astonishing power efficiency only surpassed by the far more expensive titanium rating, this power supply at a fair $130 will both supply you with enough power to run your beast of a PC without wasting any unnecessary electricity, as well as supply you with a 10-year long warranty from EVGA for free. The EVGA SuperNOVA 850p2 also grants us enough headroom to overclock both our graphics card and our CPU to a great extent without any concern, or even allow us to upgrade to an SLI solution in the future. Now that we have all of the components for our PC, we need something to put it in. As long as the case is compatible with all of our other hardware in terms of measurements, it really comes down to aesthetic preference. So I am going to recommend my current favorite case, which is the Fractal Design Define S Window Edition for a generous $80. This is a beautiful, clean looking case with a very reasonable price tag and enough room for what we're building. This case comes with two Fractal Design Dynamic GP14 140mm fans. But if you want to amp up the airflow through your case and thus the cooling of all your components, then I'd recommend picking up a few Corsair Airflow Quiet Edition fans for the case, and two static pressure ones for the H110i. This all comes down to a total of just over $2,060 on Amazon or $1,950 on PC Potpicker for a monster gaming PC that I would even like to call luxurious. With a PC like this, you'll be able to game at 60 FPS in almost every single game you can get your hands on, in 4K with the settings pretty much maxed out. Or you could get yourself a 120Hz or 144Hz monitor like myself and go full throttle in 1080p or 1440p. That's it for this PC build and this video. If you have any questions or want to make a suggestion for something that you would have done differently, feel free to leave a comment to let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed and I'll see you in the next one.